is the ancient snowman. Metaphysics always come before physics, right to left, left to right. This is why Allah is a scientific term being obfuscated in relationship to a nature of organized crime that no one realizes. No one realizes the nature of the motivations for it. So no one realizes facts treatments capable of someone of people with different all the different kinds of ways being hurt by it, needing to everyone's. So this is the ancient snowman. In other words, I showed you before in another video. Everyone sees physics. It's a physical value. But why? No matter what you see, the space value in the range between the black, seeing nothing, like the pupil of our eyes, and with the light. We are, in other words, in physics, we're a body of a species bigger than us, with the nature of unchanging, positive to unchanging. And we're an individual and with finite beyond our unchanging, the nature of a positive unchanging. And we have the nature of change with our decisions, because we're also we're a correlation nature. That means, for example, there are two natures of clauses in English. We're going to learn the phrase, the clause, and the word. It's very simple English. All the sciences are being obfuscated in relationship to a nature of organized crime. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. But we're gonna learn algebraic consciousness, and we're gonna show how nations were forced to losses in founding. We know this. We have proofs of it. We have our founders forced glorified because we have mistreatments forced top down with human education, for example, in relationship to American history, and in relationship multi-front to the way insidiously it's with ancient history interpretations, and multi-front at the same time, while the colleges are in control of the industries of the religions at the same time. Islam warns about that people are going to say they're Muslims always, but the Quran warns, not Islam. The Quran warns that the people are going to say they're Muslim always, but they're not really Muslim. So what we do, we're with blind faith to facts treatments and scientific evidences and experts, in conjunction with a staid evidence fabrication method, insulation of it too, because the nature of the courts only let trained as self-defense nature to roles with all negative value nature progressions, using language to convict against it, against real things and made up things, with this is the most important thing. There's the pluses. This is the ancient snowman. Overall, unchanging, positive. It never changes. Not just for the nature of it. What is in demonstration? What every value has in common is that it's space nature. So we're going to correlate. So that's one thing we know. Everything that is a value is space nature. So we have identities. Why? Because there's one identity that all temporary space nature shares, which is the unchanging nature of positive value overall, which is value A. in immediate space value nature with the finite and with bodies of consciousness, we have that question mark, we have that identity in the middle, the lowercase one, because as our physical bodies, as the identity of our physical bodies. The uppercase letters of the alphabet are to teach about what unchanging positive identity looks like. The lowercase letters are drawn to show what its juxtaposition with physical bodies is drawn to look like. And then it ends at Z. And this is algebraic consciousness. If it's high, it's the top of Z. And then Allah forces evolution because we stay within the nature of positive, unchanging positive here. The rest of the complete nature of unchanging positive connects with it. It's conjunction with it here. And when we don't stay it, especially from criminally legalized persuasion since ancient times, and in the maintenance of interscience roles, with evidence fabrication methods, and with leaders' laws, and with legal nature's laws, they were only let realized trained as evidence fabrication natures, hurt conviction natures. That's why they can't even explain American history. Our schools, they blame the colonial tactics still on hurt, on hurt conviction natures as them, because they're not blaming it on the organized crime. They're not showing what the predicate acts were because there was too many of them. But that's why it's easy to understand. This is I'm not a lawyer, but this is they say this is an internation organized crime. It was an internation organized crime. And before and with and as the nature of military, so their law is no good with this. We have to understand we are one legion. There is only one identity to the legions. There is only one legion, and it's of the Campus Marcius, and the Campus Marcius is a correlation nature. So we have to do is the nations with nuclear weapons need to understand that and explain, make the negative into the positive, monetize it, force it monetized, to show them how leaders are being forced. Agree, you have the right to do that. Agree and then hold the conversation to that. Put the money in a bank and say, look what we're doing. We're gonna just forget the concepts. Capitalism, communism, socialism. These are all with physical delusions forced to facts treatments that are the sabotage of the Constitution. It's a sabotage of the Constitution and of free speech with offensive, forced evidence fabrication methods and motivations right through our branches to all areas. Per what stays her conviction natures to all areas in the criminal justice system. A breaching evidence fabrication method and nature, they don't even understand the motivations with it. The human education was denatured, criminally engineered to have nobody understand, to perpetually exploit, to have everyone stay their own role, our own roles, as defending pseudo identities top down one way and bottom up another way, and everybody lying about it because everyone's forced to improper facts treatments. Native Americans know. People just forsake it because they put business before the improper facts treatments. They say, oh, money. Oh, conviction. They say human, passion and stuff like that. Only because the free speech has to be let free. So, this is the ancient snowman to show how correlation works, how English is revealed to teach how unchanging positive is a correlation, is not a correlation nature. It is the only point to correlation to life. It is the only point. It is the only unchanging value. Unchanging space nature's positive identity. We are all values are unchanged, are space nature. The heart of this is before metaphysics, and metaphysics always come before physics. So when you see when I draw when we look at the three pluses I showed in the other video with the right to left and left to right, and the nature of positive is unchanging beyond our control. In the middle one, our choices and our acts and our nature and our education, three ways at all times. We share, not only do we share the same positive identity, we share it with the same reason that the rest of nature with no criminal persuasions shares it. But it's in relationship to what demonstrates to our body of consciousness distinctly. In other words, criminal persuasions have of human education denatured our understanding and communications with the only value nature system. This is what the tree of life is with cipher and demonstration of. Why don't they just explain this directly? Because everyone's convictions. That's why the Quran describes how people are going to say they're Muslim and be Muslim all ways, but they're not. And the Quran saying even to values even the unbeliever. If you look at it in sequence, it's saying to value the unbeliever, but who's really trying to figure out unchanging positive, Allah. This is a scientific term before the Quran. The Quran, but see, everyone's logic and facts treatment is forcing this conversation out of sequence. Same thing we do with American history, forsaking Native American rights, with her conviction natures, as indifference natures, and as delusions, blaming it on human nature, not understanding, not by accident, not understanding, not let being understand, and then only let being invested to needs to mistreat the facts. So the ancient snowman is to show how three ways, unchanging positive is only three ways at once. And if one of the ways is not, it's not being unchanging positive and independent nature, then it's not positive. It's only temporary positive. See, we are forever nature. This is what religions are trying to say. Consciousness is diffusing through us. What is consciousness? Positive is not the only unchanging value. How does the only unchanging value is progressively, as space nature's positive identity is progressively a value to it, is progressively so through temporary space nature, which is immediate space nature, Earth. Overall positive identity of space forced the evolution of Earth, which is, evolution is a word that ancient sciences revealed to teach about what positive value nature progressions is. Evolution. See, we have sciences obfuscating human facts treatments by forcing evolution to entertain through time delusions, and they're forcing there be no active science, which is when science is around us with no criminal persuasions, they're active to one task and body together, and this is what English is revealed to teach, A through Z. Alpha body's consciousness diffuses energy, freeing God. God's high identity, juxtaposed, juxtaposing kind, longing. Mother's omega neutral. Mother's neutral omega. Inherent to value O, inherent to the omega, inherent to omega is value A. See value man. I play no games, man. Inherent to Jamaica is Native American rights forsaken too. They divide and conquer. They use culture. Only inherent to culture is unchanging positive value, but that's a shared identity. See, but what they do, they force human logic to fake identities, and then they force a mix. You know what I'm saying? So now they have facts treatments that are all measured evidence fabrication natures in relationship to complex litigation, the real distinctions being made by natures of agencies, only let realize the sophistications, forcing their roles, blaming it on money, but not honestly, knowing it's not that. It's not that. The nature of business is not free. It's not free with bonds behind his back. We can convict this. You know what I'm saying? It's before and beyond military courts. Through ours, we chant. You know what I'm saying? Who says we can't? We reveal the ancient way. Ratiocination, every nation, clap our hands. We make it stand. The Native American dreams, you know how wise you can get if you want to teach a law. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm saying they should, in the law, they should have that's why we need a game, Native American prayer bench. Who can fix the sequence nature per what they want? A nature that wasn't the nature. Our whole landscape was tactically natured. Everyone has to go to work. No one believes that. You know what I'm saying? All the streams are underground. This is the business. Everyone's business. There's so many economic things invested in us staying fit as it, working as is. You know what I'm saying? Denatured. This is not by accident. This was tactically set up. This is where American history begins, but it's not being let because we have forced offensive interbranch evidence fabrication natures only let realize together, relying upon each other in justifications of an imperfect world, and that being the nature of their convictions. You know what I'm saying? And that's all. So, in other words, everybody is a victim, but different ways at once, and it's a sequence nature, and that's why we have to start with Native American rights, because then we could understand. But so we have they're juxtaposed. You know, so we have to force ourselves to put while we're playing business, we need to be actively be filling human standards to a higher level. You know what I'm saying? And we're not being able to do this because of the way the sciences are connected to the industries, especially the way medicine is connected to the courts with means to the evidence fabrications, using the nature of the law as it is, with them hiding medical information, pretending to have to conceal that, to not talk about it, and naturing conversations in relationship to databases that were originally set up to be exploited through time. That's why they made 6 terror laws. It was to make everybody play out exactly the way everyone's thinking with facts treatments. You know what I'm saying? They don't want us to understand an ancient organized crime. The devil is an organized crime method. This is the most logical thing to think about religion. There's proofs this is what it's about. A nature of organized crime that we must address, proper facts treatment. But we have to do it not through the laws of our countries, which are all forced too hard. How? Because they're all forced to shared policing. that they have to share. In other words, how are you going to police if one nation is telling the other guy's police? You know what I'm saying? So they must have, obviously they're sharing, we're a commodity. Our landscape never stopped being a force. The Native Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Museum in Rhode Island, the oldest Native American museum in America, oldest Native American. They remember the landscape being denatured. You see, but they were only let to understand it in relationship to England doing it. But it wasn't just England doing it. It was that was in the surface. In other words, they had peace relationships between these nations, and with the international shared prison systems and policing, information, stuff like that. Between that, they had a common system. You know what I'm saying? They were divide and conquer. That's why they had New Orleans and all these crazy, the Spanish. Every European nation was conquered by the same campus problem. 500 to 1000 AD was the Dark Ages, roughly. That was affected by human education being sabotaged. So now it's going to change human nature, tactically. And that's for evidence fabrication methods to be stayed. They figured out how to criminally re-engineer human nature and human education to have human nature self-defend itself this way, as evidence measured, and to perpetually measure the means to exploit the linguistics of our leaders and of our people top down of our rights. You know what I'm saying? They're forcing us to say that slavery was prejudice. Slavery was a legal nature role with terrors that our founders only had means to drop off the hope for us to be able to have the free speech and facts treatments proper to reveal it. But it's not being let with terror guises. Guys, like in other words, passion, you gotta glorify the founders. They were forced to political theater. We have to understand Marbury versus Madison. I'm not a lawyer. But it's essentially, it was explained to me by an accomplished pro se litigant to mean justice must satisfy all appearances of justice, real justice. In other words, this is what I'm talking about here. Overall, Earth, with no criminal persuasions, the nature of positive, what is positive to it, is unchanging. And it is unchanging in relationship to the control, to the bodies of value. The nature of positive is unchanging to all bodies of value. To bodies of consciousness, we are correlation nature. Between this, to see it. And when we, not just to see it, to be it. But so we have to understand, most importantly, top down, how we have not been that. You know what I mean? And how that was to make all nations perpetually blame it on their own people. And perpetually justify her convictions in relationship to the sensitive areas with medicine and stuff like that, with natures of roles where everyone's just looking for business interests and value nature system standards of morality, judged by monetary measurements, not by real positive value nature. In other words, this is why Allah is a scientific term needed. Because when you know, they have facts. The people, when you know we're real positive value, whereas three ways. This is. Can you see the snowman? This is a snowman. That's identity. All the top, the uppercase letters are all the positive value, unchanging nature, the identity of unchanging positive value. That is a value, but it's the only value that's unchanging. We are all space nature. Now in the middle, One of the obfuscations they did to obfuscate the law in linguistics, demonstrably there are proofs that in English, what is named the colon, they called it the Victoria or the Victoria. Now, you see the value a, left to right? That is beyond our control, the value of the finite. And a, overall, value a, that's unchanging nature of positive overall. Okay? Now, below our feet, as a value of diffusion coming through Earth, coming through our bodies, coming through physics, is the value of metaphysics, which is a value only to itself, semi to itself. And what is not to itself, in temporary space nature, is forced away from itself. This value forced away from itself is a negative value nature transfer forced by unchanging positive, the only unchanging positive identity. It's called Sleeth of Hades. And it is progressively so, because we only have now for our identities to correlate as unchanging positive value nature. But it has to be as a species too, but we have pseudo-nations. It has to be as nations too, but we have pseudo-nations. We have common shared human education, sabotages, inter-science to linguistic fact treatments in relationship to her conviction natures to all areas, in relationship to us staying perpetually incapable of revealing inter-science corruption, because inter-science corruption is connected to the industries of every branch and of all these different police natures to the areas. So we have to understand. So this is the ancient snowman. This is the ancient snowman. And so that's the colon. The colon, which we're not going to call it the colon, because the colon dies with our body. Like our body, the only way it's a complete positive value nature is it's in relationship to its role with the nature of consciousness too. Which is the only way it's complete positive value nature is when it's correlated as it. And when it's not, it's negative value nature, not only forced from here, Sleeth of Hades, but to be progressively slow in relationship to the evolution of positive value nature somewhere else. And so then it stays worse and worse to be to be negative value nature, which is an identity of consciousness once it's without the physical body. This is what English is revealed to teach with science. With science is older than religions. Religions came about because they lost control of internation science and human education. So what's that do? That forces her conviction natures, liars, and delusions to all areas. So now we're blaming human nature with our linguistics perpetually playing roles, sabotaging free speech, forcing it to have to fight with logic that if you entertain it, you lose anyways. And if you don't, you can't defend yourself and you lose. We're a negative value nature progression, humanity. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. So in other words, we need value A. We need to understand value A. Because physics, now in physics, the only way you can know when we're being the law right, when we're being justice right, which every nation failed demonstrably, is when you cause positive value nature progressions and real evolution, not just inventions, especially inventions that are causing species to go extinct. You know what I'm saying? That's negative value nature progressions, because top down, humanity has been together has been justifying roles furthering a negative value nature progression as evidence fabrication natures. as delusion propagation natures, with atomic bombs, with nuclear bombs, with chemical weapons, with natures of humanity unstable, forcing, they say what stable is, forcing bombs be the answer, because the hurt conviction natures only let trained to do this. You know what I'm saying? The answer, the Quran is with explains how this is with politics, with our police shared, forcing them on Saudi Arabia in relationship to international geopolitical impositions on every nation and upon Saudi Arabia that even Muslims don't understand, because everyone's forced to negotiations that they can't break, or they break their nation, because of the other, because it has nothing to do with sides. They're sharing what they share as peace is not peace. You know what I'm saying? Look at it. There's then they have these human standards forced when we have enforced divided means for infrastructure and stuff like that, especially exploited areas in every nation. You know what I'm saying? You put something there. You know, we need the water. She tactically denatured. That's what they did. They tactically denatured the entire landscape per ulterior motivations for it. So people would blame things like money. People would play roles in it. And people would start making judgments and taking roles with what held the law, captivation, and what held everyone measured to all areas. No organized. They had databases before they had computers. They had them. That's what this was for. When they had when they had slavery and witch trials and stuff like that, they had laws that you couldn't build any infrastructure beyond the little boxes we're still building today. And if they would kill their whole families if they tried to even meet to discuss building it outside of a moderated context with the databases, because this is an evidence fabrication method to all areas with and as a breaching method to the species value nature system. This is what the messengers of religions are talking about together. Islam is distinct from the Quran, and the Quran asks for itself to speak for itself. But it also asks Islam only to speak for Saudi Arabia. But it also warns. It demonstrates that people are going to say they're Muslim that aren't. In other words, these religions knew that we know that these religions came after. Islam ended the Dark Ages. You know what I mean? They did damage control from it. This is another counterfront with the Old Testament, with the Old Testament in Genesis. This is with Cipher. See, we're taking it out of context, so I have to address pantheism first. Because then, while the conversation's progressive, everyone's attaching it to justifications they have, and all kinds of it's just not going to work. You know what I'm saying? You have to take the sequence. Truth is a sequence nature. And American history begins with impositions upon the Native Americans that weren't just by England. It was with England fell to this too. It was a human education one. It's with the facts that we care about. It's with the predicate acts and the natures of the organized crime that we have to understand. Not that it's, but anyone can say that slavery is bad. But what you have to do is talk about how there were predicate acts and what the motivations behind them were. The motivations were criminal insidiousness. Now, criminal insidiousness natures, this is what criminal enterprises cause, like wrongdoers. This is criminal insidiousness nature. They probably don't even demonstrably these legal natures, even our own, don't even understand what criminal enterprises are bought with physical delusions attached to their convictions, and as her conviction nature rolls with our original impositions, nations. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a doctor, but we're going to use algebraic consciousness. And we need to use the term Allah scientifically with treatments of the Quran if everyone will do it. Everyone wants to pray to it, but then stand up and not be able to talk because they have hurt conviction natures and lies and delusions and indifference to it that are incapable of speaking for the Quran and in sequence. So the Quran's not only let us not to defend us with the positions they took linguistically and legally in relationship to it, in the phenomena of what's his name, Saddam, whoever. The Quran says, I judge no one. But I'm just saying that I want to judge the facts, and everyone's got the facts wrong. You know, I mean, the Quran's not being allowed to defend itself because everyone's got political interests in but it's worse than just political interests. It's political, judicial, and it's international executive interests, and it's worse than that because these nations were raised as pseudo identities. Excuse me. Even kings and queens didn't fell to this. They didn't understand it. We got to know. We got to demand it.